This is Miss Soper reading Chapter 28, Reunion of Cryptid Hunters. Grace was disheartened. Her plan had failed miserably. For the past hour, she had been making as much noise as she possibly could, hoping to draw Butch and his men away from Wolf and Laurel. But none of them had appeared. They were either the worst trackers in the world, or they had decided to take care of Wolf and Laurel first, knowing then they would have all the time they needed to find her. On top of this, she had no idea where she was. She continued to follow the parrot. She didn't know what else to do. With great caution, Marty worked his way back to where he had hit Butch on his head. As he'd hoped, it looked like Butch had returned to camp for fresh footwear. In the muddy trail, there were clear imprints of a left boot and right sock heading in that direction. Following Grace's path through the forest was not easy. Her step was much lighter than Butch's, and Marty would sometimes lose the trail for hundreds of yards before picking it up again. Grace was heading roughly toward the sky house, but in a crazy way. She would follow a clear trail for a while, then inexplicably leave the trail, breaking through thick foliage for a time, then picking up another trail and repeating the process. If she was trying to throw Butch off her track, this was not the way to do it. When they got back to Cryptos, he was going to give her some lessons in how to ditch a tracker. The subject had been thoroughly covered at survival camp. Every few minutes, he stopped to check the vidcam and blow the whistle. The raven was flying above the canopy, but so far he hadn't spotted Grace or Butch. Marty heard Grace before he saw her. She was talking to someone. He wondered if Butch had tricked him with the footprints heading back to camp. Silently, he crawled forward. Grace was talking to a tree. At least, that's what it looked like. He stepped out into the open. Grace screamed in delight, ran over, and threw her arms around him. "They're going to kill Wolf and Laurel," she said breathlessly. "We have to warn them. Noah Blackwood is on his way to pick me up. Butch is..." Marty managed to separate himself from her iron grip and held her at arm's length. "You look pretty good for someone who's been kidnapped. Did you hear what I said about Wolf and Laurel?" He took the gizmo out. "I already warned them." "How did you get that?" Marty explained what had happened since Butch had taken her from the sky house, leaving out the trunk and photos of Rose. He didn't know if she knew that Wolf was her father, and he wasn't exactly sure how to broach the subject. When he finished, Grace explained what had happened to her, leaving out the reason she had fainted, her nightmare that was actually a memory, and the parrot who was still perched in the branch above them. Marty hadn't noticed him yet. Their updates were followed by an awkward silence, something neither of them had ever experienced with each other. "What's the matter?" Grace finally asked. "Nothing," Marty answered innocently. "I was just thinking we should get moving toward the sky house. It won't take long for Butch to lace up his boots and get back on our trail." He was right about Butch, but Grace didn't believe this was still what he was thinking. "Did you happen to go up to the second floor of the sky house?" "Yeah," Marty admitted. Grace's blue eyes began to well with tears. "So you saw the nursery?" Marty turned away. She gently turned him back. Then he began to cry as well. She told him about the dream. When she finished, she said, "It doesn't make any difference, Marty. As far as I'm concerned, you're still my brother." Marty wiped his tears away and grinned. "Older brother," he said. "What?" He told her about the photographs he had found in the trunk. "One of them was you celebrating your first birthday. You'll be 13, 2 weeks." He checked the date on his watch from yesterday. Butch McCall was in a foul mood. His head hurt where the boy had cracked him with the branch. His right foot was on fire from the vicious thorn he had stepped on his way back to camp. And he was still groggy from the sleeping pills. When he arrived at camp, he kicked his sleeping Jean Claude awake. "Why didn't you grab the boy?" "What boy?" Jean Claude said innocently. "I've been unconscious since you left. I'm not feeling..." "Give it a rest. The boy was here, along with the pygmy. Their tracks are all over the place." "What happened to your head?" Jean Claude asked. Butch didn't answer. He limped over to his lean-to and put on his boots, then started following the pygmy in the boy's tracks. He came to the place where the pygmy had gone after his men and the boy followed Grace. He swore and tried to reach the men on the walkie-talkie, but there was no answer. They were too far away. His brain told him to follow the pygmy and make sure he didn't interfere with his plan for Wolf and Laurel. His battered pride told him to go after the kids who had duped him. His pride won out. "Where are Wolf and Laurel?" Grace asked. "I don't know. They took off their tags. Wolf said they would be at the Sky House this afternoon. Why were you talking to a tree when I got here?" "I wasn't." She pointed up. "I told you there was a parrot." "We've met," Marty said. "It's an African gray parrot, sometimes called a Congo gray parrot. And you didn't tell me that it talked." "I didn't know till yesterday." "What did it say to you?" "Rose is back," Marty answered. "That's what it said to me," Grace said. "It seems to want to show me something." "We're not going to follow the parrot," Marty protested. "Wolf was very specific about us going directly to the Sky House." "Why aren't we going in that direction?" "More or less. Aren't you curious?" Marty looked up at the parrot. "A little," he admitted. "I've been following your tracks, and the bird does seem to have something in mind." Grace smiled. "We'd better call Wolf." He handed her the gizmo. It was the first time Grace had seen Wolf since learning he was her father, and a stream of emotions filled her when she saw his tired face on the little screen. She felt concern, fear, and affection for the man looking at her. "Hi," she said shyly. "Hi," Wolf said. "I'm sure glad to see you. Marty's a good man to have around." "Yes, he is." She glanced at Marty, who was beaming at the compliment. "How did you get away from Butch?" She told him about the sleeping pills. Wolf laughed, and then asked if they were headed to the Sky House. "More or less," Grace said. "We'll be there soon. Noah Blackwood is on his way here in a helicopter." "A helicopter," Wolf said. "That might come in handy." "Bertha." The gizmo screen blinked on. "His battery's going dead," Marty said. The gizmo came back on. "What about Butch?" Wolf asked. We haven't seen him. You've got to keep moving." "We will." "My battery is just about gone, so I can't explain everything, but things are looking up. Just get to the Sky House, and we'll be there soon." "What about Butch's men?" "Don't worry about them. I have a pretty good idea of where they're going to be waiting. We'll get around them." "How's Laurel?" "I'm about 150 yards behind her, and I'm afraid if I don't catch up soon, she'll leave me behind. In other words, she's doing better than I am." "I know you're my father," Grace said, "and it's okay." The words had just slipped out, and they weren't exactly the words she wanted to use, but it was too late to take them back. Wolf stared at the screen for several seconds, then his face broke into a broad grin, which completely transformed his appearance. "Okay is absolutely wonderful," he said.